Hi everyone, and welcome back to 7 by 7, the Tribal Habits video blog tackling the big issues in the learning and development space. I'm joined as always by David King, the founder and CEO of Tribal Habits. How are you today, Dave?
I'm fantastic, Jordan. It's Friday, so I think after this video, we're almost at the weekend.
Absolutely. Before we get to the weekend, though, we're going to talk about not-for-profit organizations and online learning within those businesses. So I think it's a really interesting space because there are unique challenges in there. You know, we all know that cost is always a challenge in that space, but we see other challenges as well around the capability of the workforce, or even the nature of the workforce, and that we might have more volunteers than we have in other areas, or more part-time staff in other areas. So yeah, that's what I'd like to go through today. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me. I think we should talk cost. Why don't we do that at the end, though?
Yeah.
Because there's probably some other things we could talk about which are important for them before that.
Excellent. Well, let's jump in with your first point. What do you think is a really important feature or aspect that not-for-profit organizations need to consider when looking at online learning?
Yeah, I think definitely the first point is that you need a cloud-based platform that essentially has no IT deployment. So I think the days of having on-premise deployments are really past. You know, that subscription as a service, cloud-based platforms, just take that all away. And I think, you know, maybe for really large organizations where they want to have control of their own servers or data management or something, that there might be some sense for that. But for a not-for-profit organization, that doesn't make any sense. It's not a good spend of time, of money, of technology. So we're looking for something that has no IT deployment, has no downloads for either setup or for users, is entirely browser built and browser based across any browser. So it's just a flick a switch and you're done.
Absolutely. So I think this next question kind of follows on, but it would be good to talk about accessibility, both from a visual point of view, but also from a location or geographic point of view as well.
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned that at the start. So I think for not-for-profits and charities, you've got a situation where you probably have a very distributed workforce who doesn't always work full time and needs to, and you're asking them to do training, which may be quite ancillary to what they're doing. They're not always like normal employees in that they have a desk and they sit at it and they can slot it in. They're there to achieve other objectives working for you. And certainly your headquarter staff, yep, they're at a desk. They're used to doing it. So I think having flexibility for them, which means you need your platform to be fully mobile responsive so that they can use any device anywhere, which gets back to that. If it's completely browser based, it should be. You should just be able to log in from any device, an iPad, laptop, desktop, from a mobile phone. That's useful. I'm not a huge fan of learning on a mobile phone. It's a really small screen. But if someone needs to do that, you need to give them that option.
Yeah.
Equally importantly is the issue of accessibility. And so this means making the content and the platform available for all types of users, visually impaired, everyone, people who need to use a keyboard only for their interface. So this is where you need to make sure your platform meets certain guidelines. Typically, it would be the Web Accessibility Content Guidelines, WACG. The latest standard is 2.1. And I think you should be aiming for a platform that can deliver the platform interface and its content at a level AA standard. That's going to tick the boxes for most people and make the training accessible for anybody. And often at not-for-profits and charities, you need to be able to cater for anybody.
Absolutely. So we touched on it a moment ago, but I want to talk about content as well. It's not just for not-for-profit organizations, but this is something we see across industries. There's a lot of enthusiasm around getting an online learning platform. And then the big question is, what are we going to populate it with? Where is this content going to come from? So how do people go about that?
We always come back to this one question, don't we? This issue of content. Yeah, you get this platform and then what do you do with it? Yeah. Look, for a not-for-profit where you've got limited resources on every front, you have to have ready-made content available in your platform. So you need a learning platform that definitely has some libraries with it and can help you get started straight away. I think, though, even more critically is you need those libraries to white label, to brand to your organization's branding. I think people join a not-for-profit or a charity, or one of the reasons they join is to because they like the brand. They've They've aligned with it at a very emotional, social level.
Yeah.
And so I think if they can see that even in their training, I think that's actually quite positive. I think that's a really big engagement thing. And it also is often a reward. People who are volunteering, if the training you're providing to them is on productivity or leadership or management or using tools, it's a reward for them for being there. It's making them a better person, or at least upskilling them. And so if that's presented in your branding, I think that's really positive.
Yeah, and I think there's another thing to touch on here around content, which is the ability to create customized content. We're looking at organizations that often occupy a niche. There's not a lot of generic content out there for them. So how do they go about making their own content?
Yeah, so once I guess you've got those ready-made libraries which plug in all of your kind of big topics, you need something for your own induction purposes. And you know, whether it is fundraising or donation strategies, or whether it's how you internally manage your membership or your volunteers, or whether it's certain standards and reporting that people have to have if they're out in the field as volunteers implementing or doing something. Yeah, I mean, if you can get that standardized, you help your reputation as an organization, you get better results and standards, and you get less frustration, I think, from the staff out in the field or the volunteers out in the field, because they know what to do. Yeah. And they spread the good word that, you know, joining this organization, you get to make a difference really quick because they show you how to do that. And so, yeah, so I think your learning platform also needs the ability to deliver on this. So ideally, we want a platform that, you know, is cloud-based, accessible, has ready-made content, and can help you create your own content. You don't need another tool to do that, another subscription, another added degree of complexity. You kind of need, and certainly not the cost you want to pay to an external e-learning consultant to build your software, because that's gonna destroy your budget. So yeah, we want something that's got a built-in capability for you to capture and share some knowledge.
Excellent. So how about management of training? I know it's not really in anyone's best interest or anyone's use of time to be chasing training completion rates and things like that. So how do people avoid the administrative pitfalls that they may have seen in the offline training world?
Yeah, this is definitely where your platform needs to have a degree of automation. So, and they're going to be things like sending out enrollments on your behalf from a spreadsheet, or allowing managers or regional coordinators to enroll people when admins aren't around, setting all the reminders and the follow-up and the notification, tagging certain stakeholders when certain things are happening or not happening in order to escalate some follow-up. You need all those sort of automation features built in. And it's not just the burden thing. I've observed that in a lot of charities and not-for-profits, the person responsible for training is not a full-time employee. You know, they're there Tuesday and Wednesday each week. And so the beauty of having an automated platform is the automated platform's there 7 days a week and can keep things moving in the absence of that person. And so when that person comes in, they don't have to worry about wasting time chasing people up. They can spend the limited time they've got on much more valuable activities around training.
Yeah. Excellent. So let's get to pricing. We mentioned it earlier, but it is obviously a pretty vital lever in the setup here as well.
Yeah, and I think, look, you know, my sixth point, we're doing our 7 things. My sixth point, I'm actually going to say is, you know, you should be getting a discount as a not-for-profit or charities. I'll just say it right out there. You know, you should be getting that, expecting it. It should be right off the bat. Profit organizations should be there to help out not-for-profit organizations. So let's just do that as a given.
Absolutely.
I think, though, the 7th thing I'd bring up, though, is the pricing model. So I've noticed that a lot of platforms work on a stored user basis. So if you have 200 people in your organization, the subscription is for 200 people. The problem is, at a not-for-profit, you're often not doing training all the time. The training that's often happening is induction training and compliance training. So induction training is very much a one-off hit up front, or when someone moves into a new role or there's a new procedure, or compliance training, which is probably annual, which means you're going to have kind of, you know, you're not going to have all 200 users in the system all the time. So I think you need to look for a subscription model that's much more around actual use or active use, where you're only being charged for people actually in the system using it. And when they're not using it, you're not being charged. That's going to have the single biggest impact on your budget. Because if you have 200 people, but only 30 or 40 of them are training every month, you only need a subscription for 30 or 40. Well, that's like a 60% saving in costs right there.
Yeah.
So I think I'd be putting it onto the learning platform to say, yes, we're a not-for-profit and we need help from profitable organizations with our pricing, but we don't want to pay for things we're not using.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which I think lends itself to the earlier point as well around that kind of software as a service. You use it as you need it, it grows as you need it, so you should really be able to pay for it as you need it.
Bang on.
Excellent. Well, that's the 7 points, and that's all we've got time for today. I will encourage anyone in the not-for-profit sector to jump onto Tribal Habits. You'll see all the features we've spoken about today and a lot more. And thankfully, we do have a not-for-profit discount at Tribal Habits, so we'll be happy to talk you through that. I don't know if there's any final thoughts from you, Dave, or...
No, look, definitely if you are in that industry, come and have a chat with us. We have a lot of clients and customers in that area. And hopefully you can tell from Jordan and I that we're quite passionate about training. So we'd love to share in the passions that you have for your not-for-profit organisation.
Excellent. Well, that's all, guys. We'll speak to you all next time.
Cheers, Jordan.